Today's subject on everything to know about cars, part 1. Nitrous. So, you guys know this about engines. More boom means
more power.
and to get more boom, you need more air. Think about like blowing air into a fire. It makes it bigger because anything flammable needs oxygen to burn. Now, a cylinder in your engine is only so big, so you have to try and maximize the amount of air and oxygen to get in there. So there's a couple of different ways you can do that. You can do something like forced induction, which is superchargers, turbochargers, and stuff like that. Or you can sneak it in with something like this. Okay, but before we get to all exciting blue flames popping out your exhaust and big red taillight trails behind you like Fast and Furious shows, we got to go through a little bit of history. Nitrous oxide was first invented by a guy named Joseph Priestley in 1772. It wasn't that big of a discovery though, because they couldn't really use it for much. What most people used it for throughout the 1800s is actually for huffing it and making themselves laugh. It was a bit of a party trick. Until World War II, when the Germans started using nitrous to increase the performance of their fighter jets. They did this by shooting nitrous into the cylinders of their engines, which brought in more oxygen. But that might make you think, why don't we just shoot straight oxygen into the cylinder, like out an oxygen tank? Well, you're not the first person to think of this. Drag racing pioneer Barney Navarro first tried this in the mid-50s. But he found out that when you put straight oxygen into a cylinder, the oxygen, if this is a cylinder, it sticks to wherever's the hottest and it explodes there, rather than exploding in the center and having a evenly controlled explosion. This leads to engine pinging and boom. The difference between nitrous oxide and straight oxygen is the nitrous oxide doesn't release the oxygen until it's already mixed with the fuel in the cylinder, creating an even explosion. When nitrous is in a bottle like this, it's mostly in a liquid form, and when it shoots out, it expands. A benefit of this, besides being able to shoot your phone down from afar, is when liquids expand into gas, they cool down. And as you know, cooler air equals denser air. Engines like this. But the nitrogen doesn't actually expand and split until it's inside the cylinder. So a stable nitrous oxide atom goes into the cylinder, and then it splits the nitrous and the oxygen, and now there's more oxygen inside the cylinder. Once you add a little bit of fuel to that, boom! Bigger explosion equals
More power.
Now that you know a little bit of the science and the history of nitrous oxide, it's time for us to learn about the two different ways of using it. There's either dry injection or wet injection. With dry injection, the liquid nitrous oxide is sprayed by itself into the air intake, and then the fuel system is rigged to spray fuel into the cylinders. While the wet injection system, nitrous oxide and fuel are sprayed into the air intake together. This is the type of system I just bought. As you see, this is the nitrous plate. The carb will go here, and the intake will go here. There's a nitrous valve, whatever you want, or solenoid, and then there's also a fuel solenoid. So they both get sprayed into the intake at the same time. Even though the systems are very different, they both need to purge. This is because the amount of gas the car is told to inject with the nitrous is based on liquid nitrous levels. And when the nitrous is sitting in the lines, it's being held at a different density compared to when it's enclosed in this bottle. So it expands. So you use a solenoid like this to purge all of the air and nitrous oxide that's in a gaseous state. I know that sounded a little bit confusing because I didn't even understand most of what I was saying. Pretty much, when the nitrous is sitting in these lines, it turns into gas rather than liquid. So you use a solenoid like this to shoot all the gas out and just leave the liquid. This is what causes that cool psh. Without a proper purge, your car would bog down for a few seconds before you really got to give it the beans. That's because you'd be pulling the gas through the lines, which isn't going to run correctly in your engine, and behind it would be the liquid nitrous. But when you purge it, you push that gas out of the lines, pull the liquid nitrous to the end, and then as soon as you hit the button to put the nitrous in the engine, your putting straight liquid in it instead of gas. So now that you guys are experts on nitrous, you know how it works, you know what it does, you know the history of it, and pretty much everything you need to know, you might be eager to go get some nitrous for your car. And I think it's a good idea. I did it. Just remember though, so when you're putting nitrous in your car, you're forcing more oxygen, you know how it works now, into the cylinder, and you're making the engine work a lot harder. So one thing about nitrous is it has a high chance of wrecking, it's hard on your engine. You could really hurt your engine using it because you're making the engine work a lot harder than it's used to working or made to work. But you do get more power. One other thing is I had to do some math here. So if you're running 125 horsepower shot of nitrous, which is a fairly small shot, I know it sounds like a lot, but some guys are running big shots. So 125 horsepower shot of nitrous. So from a 10-pound bottle like this one, this is actually 24-pound total, but it is, so the weight of the cylinder is 14 pounds, the weight of gas is 10 pounds, and the weight of the bottles is 24 pounds total. So people call this a 10-pound bottle because it's just, that's what the gas is. So if you're running a 10-pound bottle with a 125 shot, you're only going to get about 10 quarter-mile races. So that only comes out, or so 10 pounds is only about 2.5 miles. And that's going to get expensive real quick if you're using that all the time on the street. But again, who am I to say it's not cool? It does give you more power. Okay, well, I think we covered most of all the information you need to know about nitrous, the history of it, how it works, and why you shouldn't do it, but why you're still going to do it, because it gives you more power. There's not a whole lot more I can go on about without boring you guys too much. This is part 1 of a series I'd like to keep going for quite a while. So in the comments, let me know what you'd like me to crash course next. And until then, see you guys in the next one.